Harriet, and let me thank Dana for those very generous introductions. And yes, I am so pleased to accept your endorsement. For whatever reason, media does not talk a lot about one of the most serious crises facing this country. And that is the plight of millions of seniors, disabled vets, and folks with disability. We are the wealthiest country in the history of the world. We have seen in recent years a proliferation of millionaires and billionaires. But at the same time, millions of seniors, disabled veterans, and people with disabilities are struggling to try to survive on $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year. And you know what? You cannot survive on $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year. You can't pay for the health care that you need. You can't pay for the prescription drugs you need. You can't heat your home in the winter. You can't buy the food you need if you are living on $11,000 or $12,000 a year. Now, in the midst of that, many of my Republican colleagues have a brilliant idea. They think that while millions of seniors are struggling to survive on inadequate Social Security funding and benefits, they think we should either privatize Social Security or make massive cuts to Social Security. Now, can you imagine somebody talking about cutting Social Security on people who are trying to get by on $11,000 or $12,000 a year? That is crazy. That is unconscionable, and that is wrong. We will not allow that to happen. So this is what I say to my Republican colleagues in the Senate and the House. No, you're not going to cut Social Security. You are going to expand Social Security. A great nation is judged not by how many millionaires and billionaires it has. It is judged by how we treat the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. Our parents and our grandparents raised us. They built this country. We are not going to turn our backs on them. Now, the simplest and most straightforward way to deal with Social Security today is a very, very simple principle. And that is to understand that right now we have somebody making $5 million a year, somebody making $118,000 a year. They are both contributing the same amount into the Social Security Trust Fund. If you lift that cap, and you don't have to start at $118,000, you can start at $250,000 and go up from there, and have people $250,000 or more paying the same percentage of their incomes in Social Security tax as somebody making $40,000 a year. You can extend the life of Social Security from 19 years to 58 years. Number two, you can significantly raise benefits for seniors and disabled vets who are earning less than $16,000 a year. We expand benefits by $1,300 every year. No small thing. Second of all, there has been this absurd idea called a chain CPI. You all know what a chain CPI is? What it is an effort to cut Social Security by claiming that the cost of living adjustments that seniors receive are too high. Anybody here know what the COLA that seniors receive this year is? Zero. Now, when you get a zero COLA increase, how is that too high? How do you cut it? It's an absurd idea. So what we are going to do is have a segregated index for seniors, really looking at what seniors' expenditures are, which are disproportionately higher for health care and prescription drugs, meaning they need more than general inflation accounts for. So, furthermore, let me say this. We are not going to strangle Social Security Administration. We're not going to continue to close down field offices, cut back on workers. Seniors and disabled vets, deserve to have the highest quality service. When they have a problem, when they have a question, they deserve a timely answer. And that means we need to have a well-staffed, well-trained workforce in Social Security. Right. Last point that I want to make, which is a parallel issue. Many of our seniors are struggling with the high cost of prescription drugs. And I have a long history of taking on the pharmaceutical industry, and together we are going to end the rip-off of the American people by the drug companies who are charging us. And lastly, I want to acknowledge the presence of my dear friend, somebody who I have known from the day that I was elected to Congress, Marcy Kaptur of Ohio, one of the great members of the United States. Thank you all. Thank you all very, very much. And let me just thank all of you who are working for the Social Security Administration. I know that these are hard times. And I know that you are aware that every day there are people in Congress who want to make your life more difficult in terms of your ability to provide quality services to the people that we represent. So I thank you so much for hanging in there. And I very much appreciate your support today. Do you have any media interest in Social Security? No. Okay, thank you all. You're interested in Social Security?
Yes.
Okay, well, there you go.
Are you going to emphasize the differences between yourself and Secretary Clinton on Social Security?
Yes.
The way that you have with trade deals and Michigan?
Yes, absolutely. Look, here is the difference. I've been very clear. We've introduced legislation. And as I mentioned, our legislation lifts the cap on taxable income, expands benefits, and extends the life for 58 years so that our kids and grandchildren do not have to worry about whether or not they're going to get Social Security. And we do that because at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the richest people are doing phenomenally well, we think it is appropriate that we lift that cap and people on top pay the same percentage of their income as people making $40,000 a year. That is my position. That has been my position for years. That is not Secretary Clinton's position. And frankly, I have no idea what her position is. She talks in vague terms. But that is my position. And again, I want to emphasize, and I don't know why it is, why media is not particularly interested in this issue. Maybe some of you can tell me this. But you got millions of seniors in this country who are trying to get by on $11,000 and $12,000 a year. And in the richest country in the history of the world, we cannot and must not and will not turn our backs on some of the most vulnerable people in this country. All right, is this on Social Security? Okay. No.
I mean, obviously you are as aware of the situation on Capitol Hill as anyone. Do you see among your fellow senators the chance for bipartisan support? Do you see the ability to reach across the aisle? I mean, what have you seen in the Senate?
On what issue? On Social Security?
Yeah.
The answer is that real change in this country today and always has come from the grassroots. And I'll give you an example. I am the founder of a caucus in the Senate called the Defending Social Security Caucus. And we formed that caucus with other progressive Democrats because we saw the attacks coming from Republicans. And over the years, I must tell you, Marcy, you know this to be true, even some Democrats, sadly enough. All right? And we said, no, you're not going to cut Social Security. And what ended up happening, we work with a number of senior organizations, the Committee to Preserve Social Security and Medicare, AARP, other organizations. Millions and millions of signatures came in on petitions. You know what those signatures said? Don't cut Social Security. And we were able to push back. Social Security was not cut. So to answer your question, whether you are a conservative Republican or a progressive Democrat, you understand something. And that is when people all over this country stand up and fight, you're not going to go against them. And millions of seniors are standing up, and disabled veterans. We work on this issue with obviously the major senior groups, We work with all of the veterans organizations, the American Legion, DAV, Vietnam Vets, the VFW. We work with disability groups, and all of these groups stood up and they said to Congress, you will not cut Social Security. We won that. Now the fight is to expand Social Security. So to answer your question, yeah, I think when millions of people stand up and fight back, we will be able to expand Social Security.
Pensions. Can you say something about the legislation that you and Marcy Kaptur have introduced?
Absolutely.
Pensions?
Look, when we talk about what goes on with seniors, what Marcy Kaptur knows, what I know, is there was a terrible provision in a major piece of legislation that will make massive, could make massive cuts in pensions that workers were promised and were guaranteed. You underline people's faith in government when you have a process in which people were promised pensions, gave up wage increases, gave up health care benefit increases for these pensions, and then Congress acts to say, no, we're going to see the possibility of massive cuts in pensions. I am on legislation in the Senate. Marcy is working hard in the House. We're going to do everything that we can to make sure that the promises made to those workers are promises that are kept. On Social Security,
This is your fourth press conference in 2 weeks on issues that are very important to you, Social Security and trade, illustrating differences between you and Secretary
Yes.
Clinton. Why just now are you making this push to illustrate those differences?
I don't think that's accurate. I think we have been doing our best. I think sometimes people get confused with the kinds of vicious personal attacks being made by Republicans against each other, which I don't do. And what we are seeing in the Republican presidential process is like a sixth grade food fight that you see. And I would hope that most sixth graders understand that we don't behave like that. So what we are trying to do and have from day one is differentiate our differences, which are very strong, with Secretary Clinton. Now, trade is a huge issue here in the Midwest, in Ohio, in Michigan, in Illinois, and all over this country. We have lost thousands and thousands of factories in this country since 2001. You can believe it. We have lost 60,000 factories in this country and millions of good-paying jobs. Now, all of that is attributable to trade, but a lot of it is. And many of us in Congress have understood from day one what a disaster NAFTA would be, what a disaster permanent ownership would be. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a PhD in economics to understand that if given the option, American corporations would much prefer to pay people in Mexico or China pennies an hour rather than pay American workers a decent wage and negotiate with the union. Everybody knows that. That's what they did. I opposed every one of these disastrous trade agreements, and history will record I was right. Hillary Clinton supported NAFTA, supported PNTR with China, supported the Colombian trade agreement, supported the Korean trade agreement, supported almost all of these disastrous trade agreements. And the result is the loss of millions of decent paying jobs and a race to the bottom. A race to the bottom, which means that now many of the new manufacturing jobs being created in America pay substantially less than the jobs we used to have. So, I think history will record that I was right on these trade agreements, and if elected president, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make a radical change in our trade policy. Corporations in this country are going to start investing in Ohio, in Michigan, in Vermont, in the United States, not just in China. Any other questions on Social Security? Okay, thank you all.